This is the end of module review for Module 3. Question 1 says, Maria put 2/3 pounds of birdseed in her bird feeder. So we circle and underline. And on Monday, and she put 1/4 pound of seed in the feeder on Wednesday. How much birdseed did she put in the feeder? So we need to add them. So on the side, I do 1/4 plus 2/3. I know my common denominator is 12. So now I have to figure out my numerators. So 4 times 3 is 12, so I have to do times 3. So this would be 3, and 3 times 4 is 12, so I have to do times 4, which is 8. And when I add them together, I get 11/12. Next, on Monday, Jeff bought 3 1/4 pounds of candy. He used, which means we're taking that away, he used 2 1/3 pounds on Tuesday and 1/4 on Thursday. How much candy does Jeff have left? So the first thing that I need to do is I'm going to take my 3 1/4. I'm going to take away this 4th over here because that's easy to do. I don't have to change anything, and I can say that I'm left with 3. Then he used 2 1/3. So I'm going to take my 3 minus my 2 1/3, and I know that I'm going to end up with 2/3 because I have to fill this to get to 3. But I don't see an answer that matches that. So I'm going to find another way, and you'll see that my answer is there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 3 1/4, and I'm going to subtract my 2 1/3. And what we learned to do is turn them into mixed numbers, improper fractions first. So 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13/4. And then over here we have 7/3. And now we're going to turn these into the same denominator, which is 12. And if I look at my answers, they're all out of 12, so that might help me. So here I went times 3. So when I go times 3 here, I have 39/12. And over here I went times 4. So times 4 over here is 28. And then I end up over here with 11/12. But I still have to take away my 1/4. So I'm going to do that part up here. So I have 11/12 minus 1/4. I can keep this as 11/12. Change this out of 12ths. 4 times 3 is 12. So 1 times 3 is 3. And 11 minus 3 is 8/12. My answer is A. Now just for those of you who are ready for it, to go back to when I said my answer was 2/3. If I look at this, they're equivalent fractions because 3 times 4 is 12 and 2 times 4 is 8. So that would have worked as well. Next question, on Tuesday, Marty bought 4 1/2 pounds of ground meat. He used 1 2/3 pounds to make 7 hamburgers, and he used 1/4 pound to make a cheeseburger. How much does he have left? So it's the same process. So I have 4 1/2 pounds of ground meat, and he used up 1 2/3 to start. I'm going to turn them into improper fractions. So I have 9/2, and I have 5/3. The common denominator in this case would be 6. And when I subtract these two, I get 17/6. But then I still have to subtract out this 1/4. So I come over here and I do 17/6 minus 1/4. And my common denominator for these two is 12. You can use 24, but I don't need to go all the way up to that. So this was times 2, so times 2 is 34. And this is times 3, so times 3 is 3. And 34 minus 3 is 31/12. And when I turn that back into a mixed number, I know it goes in 2 and 7/12. So my answer would be C. Number 4, Stephen loves cookies but does not like them if they have nuts. He buys 4 7/8 pounds of cookies from the bakery. 1 5/10 pounds have nuts in them, so he won't eat them. How many pounds will he eat? So I have 4 7/8. The next question is this 1 5/10 as I read it. So that's 1, and 5/10. So I'm going to subtract them. But in order to do that, I first need to turn them into improper fractions. So I have 39/8, and over here I have 15/10. And the common denominator that I see in here is 40. Some of you might not be able to do this in your head, so you might want to come on the side and do something like this. And over here, we're doing times 4. And when I subtract these two, I end up with 135/40ths. And I have to turn that into a mixed number. And when I turn that into a mixed number, I get 3 and 15/40ths. And I say to myself, oh, that's not up there. But then maybe I can simplify it. So I keep my 3. If I divide them both by 5, I get 3/8. And I see that 3 and 3/8 is up there. Next, Erin said that 14/35 of the members of her hiking club are girls. What fraction is equivalent to 14/35? So I'm going to put 14/35 next to this and we're going to see. So I'm going to say 5 times 7 is 35. 2 times 7 is 14, so that's equivalent. Let's check this one. If I do 35, this doesn't go in even, so that's not going to work. If I do 35, this isn't going to go in even, so that doesn't work. And if I do 35, this doesn't go in even, so that doesn't work. So my answer is A, and please notice that I still checked the rest of my answers. Next, which statement below correctly compares the fractions? Well, when I look at these two, when the denominator is the same, the larger the numerator, the larger the fraction. So 7 is bigger than 5, but this says it's less than, so that's incorrect. Same denominator, they should have the same numerator to be equal, so that's not correct. So then I look over here, same denominator, 3 is smaller than 6, so 3/10 should be smaller than 6/10. So far that is correct. And then I go over here, the denominator is the same, 1 is not bigger than 5, so that's not correct, so my answer is C. Next, Jared bought 16/24 pounds of peanuts. What is it in simplest form? So I'm not going to use what's there, I'm going to solve for myself. I see that 8 can go into both of those, so if I divide them both by 8, I end up with 2/3, and now I see an answer that matches. Next, Jimmy's boat is 27 3/4 feet long. Debbie's boat is 22 1/2. How many feet longer is Jimmy's than Debbie's? So I'm going to take my 27 3/4 and my 22 1/2, and I'm going to change them into improper fractions like we've talked about. Some of us might need to do this on the side. And then add in my 3, so then I have 111/4. And then I go down here and I can do 45/2. 4 is something that can stay. This one should change to 4, which would be 90. And when I subtract them, I get, do it over here, 21/4. Turn it back into a mixed number, which would be 5 1/4. So my answer would be B. Next, exercise after school. Megan rode her bicycle for 5/8 of an hour. She also practiced shooting baskets for 1/8 of an hour. What fraction of an hour did she exercise? Well, in this case, what works out great is they are the same numerator, same unit, so I can just add them right up. But then I have to simplify and divide them both by 2, and I end up with 3/4. Next, Caitlin bought 1 9/10 yards of fabric to make a banner for her bedroom wall. How is this written as an improper fraction? Well, we know we do 10 times 1 is 10, plus 9 is 19, so we end up with 19/10. Next, Andrew's writing a statement to compare these two numbers. What symbol goes in there? Well, I see that I have 18 and I have 9, so if I change this to something out of 18, 9 times 2 is 18, 7 times 2 is 14. Now I can compare them, they both are 18. 15 is bigger, so I know my bigger side needs to go there, so my answer is C. Next, the table below shows what Sam bought to make trail mix. So we have all these fractions. Which type of fruit did Mrs. Smith buy the least amount of? Well, the easiest thing to do is to make them all out of the same fraction. These all can go into 24. So if this is 24, I do 2 times 12, so this would be 12. If this was 24, I do 6 times 4, so I have to do times 4, which is 20. If I do this into 24, it's times 2, so times 2 is 10. And this into 24, which would be times 3, and so times 3, which would be 15. And when I look at all these, the one with the least amount, the smallest number on top, is my pineapple. So my pineapple is what fruit she did the least amount of. Next, it says, how is this written as a mixed number? We have to remember that this means 31 divided by 4, if that helps some of you. So it can go on 7 times, and there's 3 left over, so this becomes my whole number. And then after my whole number, I have 3/4 left over. If I look up there, there actually is no answer that is correct there. So for number 13, nothing is correct. This would have been the correct answer, 7 3/4. Next, Rachel is running a race in her meet. The first race is 4 7/8 kilometer, and the second is 3 5/8. How many kilometers will Rachel run by the end of the meet? So we have 4 7/8 and 3 5/8, and we're going to convert them into improper fractions. So we have 39/8 and 29/8. And when we add the two of them up, we end up with 68/8. And then we have to turn it into a mixed number. So we have 8 4/8. And when you simplify that, it is 8 1/2. So the answer is A. Next, the Youth Against Cancer Club has collected money to donate to the Leukemia Society. Below are the fractions showing how much of the total money was collected by the grades. So we have all the grades. Before I even start, I'm going to make everything out of the same denominator, which 12 would work, just to make it easier to look at. Which grade has collected the least amount of money? Well, 5th has 2, 6th has 1, 7th has 5, and 8th has 4, so the least would be 1, so that would be 6th grade. And which grade has collected the greatest? When I look back at those numbers again, I see 7th has 5/12, so it would be 7th. Next, there are 20 desks in the class. 1/2 of the desks are being used by the students and the rest are not. If 4 more students come in the class and each use a desk, what's the total number of desks being used? So we have 20 desks to start. Half of them are being used, so 10 are used, which then tells me that 10 are not. 4 more students come into the class and they need desks, so we're going to add 4 to here and take 4 away from here. What is the total number of desks being used now? It should be 14, but it's 14 out of what? It's 14 out of the total of 20. And now I can simplify that and I end up with 7/10, so my answer is D. Next, Kevin's tomato plant grew 3/4 of an inch last week, and Andrew's grew 7/10 of an inch. Who grew more? Well, let's see. If we have 3/4 and we have 7/10, they both can turn into 20. This is times 2, so times 2 up here would be 14. This is times 5, so times 5 up here would be 15. So the 3/4 one, which was Kevin, grew more from what we can see. And we want to figure out how much more. Well, 15/20 minus 14/20 is 1/20. So Kevin's grew 1/20 more. Notice they have this one down here with the same number but different names, so make sure you're paying attention to the names. Next, at a track meet, Megan's first long jump was 3 1/6 yards. Her second long jump was 2 5/6 yards. How much longer was her first jump? So we have 3 1/6 and 2 5/6, and we're going to change them into improper fractions just like we've been doing. And when we subtract these two, we end up with 2/6, which we can't leave that way. We have to simplify, which becomes 1/3. And next, the basketball team practiced throws for a half an hour and layup shots for a quarter an hour, and they scrimmaged for 3/4 of an hour. How long did the basketball team practice altogether? So we're really adding 1/2, 1/4, and 3/4. These all can be out of 4, so it's 2/4, 1/4, 3/4, and we end up with 6/4, which is also 1 2/4, which is also 1 1/2. So there's our answer. And that is your end of module review for Module 3.